The day he walked out with his suitcase, he didn't even look back. He told me it was a business trip. But I found out the truth. He was flying across the ocean with another woman and her entire family. He left me behind, thinking I'd wait like a fool. But I didn't cry. I didn't beg. While he was sipping champagne with her, I was planning something he'd never forget. By the time he returned, the house, the memories, and I were all gone. He thought he could cheat quietly, but I turned his silence into his punishment. This is how I disappeared from his life. Forever. My name is Alina, and for 7 years, I thought I was happily married. We had a beautiful home, a small garden, and dreams we built together. But dreams can turn into lies when love turns into routine. It all began one morning when my husband, Daniel, got a message. He smiled at his phone in a way I hadn't seen in months. When I asked, he said, "Just work stuff." But the way his eyes avoided mine told a different story. I brushed it off at first, pretending not to notice. But the late nights, the locked phone, and the fake smiles became impossible to ignore. Every night, he claimed to be working overtime. Yet, when I called his office, his coworkers said he left hours ago. My heart started whispering the truth before my mind could accept it. He was hiding something. One evening, I heard him talking in the living room. His voice was soft, playful, the tone he once used only with me. "I can't wait to see you again," he said, unaware I was standing behind the door. My heart froze. That was the moment I knew. My husband was having an affair. But instead of confronting him right away, I decided to wait. I needed proof. Over the next few weeks, I quietly observed. His shirt smelled like perfume that wasn't mine. His phone had new passwords. He suddenly started going to the gym. He even bought new clothes, something he never did before. The distance between us grew with every fake smile and every silent dinner. Then one morning, he said he had to go on a business trip. "Just a week," he said. "Important clients." "You know how it is?" I nodded, pretending to believe him. But deep down, I knew this was no business trip. That night, after he fell asleep, I checked his laptop. My hands trembled as I opened his email. And there it was, a flight confirmation. 2 tickets, his name, and hers. Her name was Clara, the same woman who used to comment hearts on his social media posts. My stomach turned as I read their messages. "Can't wait to hold you under the stars," she'd written. "This trip will be unforgettable," he replied. I wanted to scream, but instead, I closed the laptop and smiled. Because in that moment, my plan was born. I wasn't going to cry or beg. I was going to disappear. The next day, I acted normal. I kissed him goodbye when he left for work. He didn't even look guilty. For the next few days, I prepared quietly. I made copies of important documents, sold small valuables online, secretly. I started talking to a real estate agent. "How fast can a house like this sell?" I asked. "Depends on how low you're willing to go," she said. "Very low," I replied. I knew I was ready to leave everything behind. The life I built with him was no longer a home. It was a cage. The night before his trip, he packed his bags. "Don't wait up for me," he said with a smile. "I'll miss you," I lied. When the taxi arrived, he didn't even kiss me goodbye. As soon as the door closed, I felt a strange freedom. The silence of the house was peaceful. For once. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and started listing things to sell. The car, the furniture, even his precious sound system. Everything had to go. For the next few days, I worked like a ghost, moving, sorting, and packing while pretending everything was fine. My neighbors probably thought I was redecorating, but in truth, I was erasing him from my life. Each box I sealed felt like closing a chapter. I found old photos of us, smiling, happy, in love. I burned them one by one in the fireplace. No more pretending, no more pain. I even found his secret perfume bottle, a gift from Clara. I poured it down the drain. The smell of betrayal faded with the steam. 3 days later, the house was officially on the market. The agent found a buyer faster than I expected. I accepted the offer without hesitation. I booked a one-way ticket to another country, somewhere he'd never think to look. When he called from his trip, I answered sweetly. "Everything's fine here," I said. He laughed, unaware that everything was about to disappear. "I'll be home soon," he said. "Sure," I replied, smiling to myself. I spent my last night in that house in silence. I walked through every room, remembering how it once felt like love. Now, it only echoed with lies. I wrote him a note and left it on the kitchen counter. "You wanted freedom. Now you have it, that was all." The next morning, I handed the keys to the new owners. They looked excited. I felt empty, but free. I took one last look at the house. Then I turned away. Forever. I drove to the airport, my heart racing with both fear and relief. As the plane took off, I whispered to myself, "It's over." But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning of my new life. Meanwhile, Daniel was enjoying sunsets and champagne with Clara. He had no idea what was waiting for him back home. He thought he'd return to his perfect little life. But he'd walk into an empty house. No wife, no memories, just silence and a note. He would call me, again and again, but my number would already be gone, deleted, blocked. Just like him, erased from my story. I reached my new city by sunrise, a place full of strangers and new beginnings. I rented a small apartment near the sea. For the first time in years, I could breathe freely. The salty air felt like a new chapter. I found a job within a week. I started painting again, something I had stopped doing years ago. Every brushstroke felt like healing. I smiled more, laughed more, slept better. I was finally living for myself. Weeks passed. One morning, I got an email from an unknown address. It was Daniel. The subject line said, "What have you done?" I opened it, my hands trembling slightly. "You sold the house? You disappeared? Why?" I didn't reply. He sent another, then another, each one more desperate than the last. "Please, just talk to me. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Come home." But there was no home anymore. Just the memories of a man who chose lies over love. I finally replied with one line. "Home is wherever I am now, without you." Then I blocked him again. That was the last time I ever heard from him. Sometimes I still think about how easily people break trust, how quickly love turns into betrayal. But then I remind myself, pain can build power. I lost him, but I found myself. And that's worth more than any house, any marriage, any past. A few months later, I stood by the ocean, watching the waves crash. I smiled, feeling proud, because I didn't just leave, I rebuilt. Daniel might have broken my heart, but I took back my story. And somewhere in the distance, he was probably wondering how I did it. How the quiet wife he ignored became the woman who vanished like a storm. Maybe he'll never know. Maybe that's the best revenge. Silence. They say the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And I had finally reached it. I no longer cared where he was or who he was with. I had my freedom, my peace, my new life. Sometimes freedom comes with a price, and I paid it in full. I learned that sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's strength in its purest form. Because the moment I left that house, I left my pain behind. I wasn't his wife anymore. I was my own woman. Strong, fearless, free. And as I stood by that endless ocean, I whispered, "Thank you for showing me who you really are." Because without his betrayal, I might never have found my power. I smiled, turned around, and walked away. Toward my new world. Toward peace. Toward me. Maybe someday he'll see me on TV or online. Maybe he'll remember the woman he once took for granted. But it won't matter. Because I'll be somewhere far away. Living, laughing, and loving again. My story doesn't end with heartbreak. It begins with freedom. I am Elena, the woman who lost everything and gained herself. And that, to me, is the real happy ending. Because some endings aren't about revenge. They're about release. I didn't destroy him. I simply stopped letting him destroy me. And when he came back to an empty house, he finally understood what loss feels like. The silence of that house was my final goodbye. The note was my closure. And my new life? That was my revenge. Because sometimes, the best revenge is peace. And I finally had it. Daniel returned from his romantic escape, expecting a warm welcome. He walked up the driveway, humming to himself, still in vacation mode. He imagined me waiting inside, smiling, pretending to know nothing. But when he reached the door, his smile faded. The door looked different, freshly painted, new locks. He tried his key. It didn't fit. Confused, he rang the bell. A stranger opened the door. "Can I help you?" the man asked. "What are you doing in my house?" Daniel barked. The man frowned. "Your house? I bought it 2 weeks ago." Daniel's face went pale. "That's impossible," he said, his voice cracking. "You must be mistaken." The man handed him the contract. "Check the name," he said calmly. Daniel's hands trembled as he saw it. Elena's signature. He stumbled back, his heart pounding. The reality hit him like a storm. The house, his pride, his comfort, his control, was gone. Sold. And I was gone with it. Clara stepped out of the car, confused. "What's going on, baby?" she asked. He turned toward her, his voice shaking. She sold the house." "What do you mean she sold it?" "I mean it's gone. Everything. My stuff. Our life. All of it." Clara crossed her arms. "Well, maybe you deserved it." He looked at her, shocked. "Excuse me? You said she was naive." "Guess not." That was the first time Daniel realized. His mistress wasn't on his side anymore. She shrugged and walked away. He stood there, abandoned in the driveway, holding nothing but regret. He drove to his office next, hoping to find a clue. But even there, his desk was cleared out. I had already called the company weeks before and transferred ownership of my shares. The email he received from HR the next day was brutal. "Due to company restructuring, your position is no longer required." In 1 week, Daniel had lost his wife, his home, and his job. Karma was finally working full-time. That night, he checked his phone. He scrolled through old photos of me, smiling, cooking, laughing. For the first time, he saw the emptiness in his own eyes. The guilt began to sink in. He sent me a message. "Elena, please. Let's talk." But the message didn't deliver. I had blocked him everywhere. He emailed, called, texted, even tried to contact my friends. But no one responded. Everyone knew what he had done. Everyone chose silence. Days turned into weeks. He rented a cheap apartment, the kind with peeling paint and flickering lights. The same man who once bragged about his perfect life now had nothing but memories. One night, he drank too much and cried himself to sleep. He kept whispering my name. "Elena, please, come back." But I was far away, in a new city, living my new truth. Meanwhile, I had started my art studio. My paintings began to sell. People loved the emotion behind them. The fire, the freedom, the healing. Little did they know each painting was a piece of my pain. One of my most popular works was titled The Empty House. It was a painting of a man standing in front of a locked door. People said it felt powerful. They didn't know it was real. One afternoon, while checking my messages, I got a surprise. A gallery in another country wanted to feature my art. "Your story through color is incredible," they wrote. I smiled, realizing my pain had become my purpose. Back in Daniel's world, things only got worse. Clara left him after a month. She told him she didn't sign up for a homeless man. He was left completely alone. One morning, he visited my sister's house. "Please," he begged. "I just want to know where she is." My sister looked at him coldly. "You had your chance, Daniel." "I made a mistake," he said, tears in his eyes. "Mistakes don't destroy lives," she replied. "Choices do." She closed the door, leaving him outside in the rain. For months, he lived with guilt eating at him. He tried to find me through lawyers, but I had legally changed my address and contact info. There was no trace left. I had vanished completely. One day, he saw my painting online. The title read, "Freedom Reborn" by Alina D. He stared at it for hours. The colors burned into his heart. Red for anger, blue for sadness, gold for peace. He whispered, "You're happy. Without me." That realization broke him more than losing everything else, because he finally saw what he threw away. Meanwhile, I stood at my first exhibition, surrounded by people clapping and smiling. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. My story had become art. My heartbreak had become my strength. A journalist approached me and asked, "What inspired your work?" I smiled softly. "A lesson," I said, "that sometimes losing someone is the best gift they can give you." That line went viral. Within weeks, my name was on magazine covers. Alina D., the woman who turned pain into power. I opened my own gallery 6 months later. Every piece told a chapter of my story, and every visitor felt something. Anger, hope, freedom. That was all I ever wanted. But destiny had one last twist. One evening, as the gallery was closing, a man walked in quietly. I didn't recognize him at first. His hair was messy, his eyes tired, and he looked older. Then he spoke. "Alina." My heart froze for a second. It was Daniel. I hadn't seen him in over a year. "What are you doing here?" I asked calmly. "I came to apologize," he said. His voice was soft. The arrogance was gone. "You don't need to," I replied. "I do," he said, his eyes filling with tears. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I threw it away." I looked at him silently. "I know sorry doesn't fix it," he said, "but I needed you to know I changed." "You didn't change," I said quietly. "You just lost everything." He looked down, ashamed. "You're right," he whispered. "I don't expect forgiveness," he continued. "I just wanted to see you happy." "You got your wish," I replied. For the first time, he smiled. A sad, honest smile. "I did," he said, "and it hurts, but I'm glad." I turned toward one of my paintings, a sunrise over the sea. "This one's called New Beginning," I told him. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "Like you." I took a deep breath. "Goodbye, Daniel." He nodded, tears rolling down his cheeks. "Goodbye, Alina." He walked away slowly, disappearing into the night. I stood there, feeling nothing but peace. No hate, no love, just closure. I turned off the lights, locked the gallery door, and smiled. I had finally faced my past, and won. As I drove home, the stars looked brighter than ever. It felt like the universe was whispering, "You did it." And I had. I built myself from ashes. I became the woman I was meant to be. Daniel's chapter was over, sealed and complete. My new story had just begun. In my apartment, I sat by the window, sipping tea. The city lights shimmered below me. I thought about the girl I used to be. Scared, quiet, dependent. She was gone now, replaced by someone fierce, free, and full of life. The next morning, I began painting again. This time, it wasn't about pain. It was about peace. Each stroke felt lighter, brighter, alive. I named that painting Forgiveness. But it wasn't for Daniel. It was for myself. For the woman who endured, who grew, who walked away. And as I stepped back to admire it, I realized my revenge wasn't selling the house. It wasn't leaving him. It was living beautifully after he broke me. That was the true masterpiece. Months later, the painting Forgiveness was sold for a record price. The buyer? Anonymous. But when I saw the note attached, I knew. "Thank you for teaching me what love really is. D." I smiled softly. Maybe people can change, but I wasn't going back. That note became the final page of my old life. I placed it inside a journal and locked it away. Then I opened a new blank page, ready for the future. Because the past no longer had power over me. I wasn't the betrayed wife anymore. I was the woman who rebuilt her world, and every scar became a brushstroke of strength. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I say, it makes you unstoppable. As the sun rose over the city, I smiled. The world was wide open again. My heart was light. My story was mine alone. Daniel was just a lesson, not a loss, and I finally understood. Freedom isn't about leaving someone. It's about finding yourself. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Thank you, life, for the second chance." Then I laughed softly, because this time, I wasn't starting over. I was starting right, and I was finally, completely free.